Throughout history, some deaths have been so horrific they're impossible to forget. In this video, we'll uncover 5 more real stories of the most brutal and unimaginable deaths ever recorded, moments that reveal just how dark and chilling human history can be. It was July 29, 2024 in Southport, England. A sunny morning at the Heartspace Community Center saw children between 6 and 11 gathered for a Taylor Swift-themed dance class. The cheerful room was alive with laughter as the kids crafted bracelets and sang along to music. Among them were 3 girls, 6-year-old BB King, 7-year-old Elsie Stancombe, and 9-year-old Alice De Silva Aguiar. None of them could have imagined how quickly this day would take a tragic turn. At around 11:45 a.m., a 17-year-old named Axel Ruda Cubana entered the center with a large knife. Chaos erupted as the children scrambled to escape. Axel, known to authorities for troubling behavior, had a long history of concerning actions, including carrying a weapon to school and expressing an unhealthy fascination with violent events. Despite being referred multiple times to the United Kingdom's PREVENT program, which aims to address radicalization, no action was taken to intervene in his escalating behavior. That day, Axel acted on his violent urges, targeting the innocent children in the studio. The 3 girls, all described as kind and creative, were unable to escape the horrific attack. Alice, who loved reading and painting, suffered multiple injuries while trying to flee. Elsie, a joyful girl who loved playing with her friends, was struck while helping a younger child. Phoebe, known for her protective nature, tried to shield a friend, but tragically lost her life in the process. The attack lasted only minutes, but the devastation it caused was unimaginable. Parents arrived to pick up their children only to find the scene of heartbreak and chaos. Emergency responders rushed to help, but despite their efforts, all 3 girls succumbed to their injuries. Axel's actions shocked the community. He was arrested at the scene, appearing indifferent to the horrific violence he had caused. Investigators later uncovered alarming details about his life. Between 2019 and 2021, he had been flagged multiple times by the PREVENT program, but the authorities repeatedly closed his case, dismissing his behavior as a mere interest in violent topics. Further investigations revealed that Axel had materials to produce ricin, a deadly poison, though there was no evidence he used it in the attack. This discovery suggested he may have been planning a larger-scale act of harm. His parents had also raised concerns about his behavior, with his father even trying to stop him from leaving the house on the day of the attack. However, Axel managed to escape and carry out his violent plan. The tragic event raised serious questions about why so many warnings were overlooked. Critics pointed out flaws in the PREVENT program, arguing that its failures allowed Axel to continue his troubling behavior unchecked. The community of Southport, devastated by the loss of Alice, Elsie, and BB, was left to grapple with the aftermath of this preventable tragedy. Axel was later sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 52 years. The judge described his actions as calculated and violent, emphasizing the severity of the attack. It was the harshest sentence ever given to someone of Axel's age. For the families of the 3 girls, however, no punishment could ease their pain. The community mourned together, but the loss of these young lives left a permanent scar. This tragedy raises troubling questions. Could the system have prevented this? Were the numerous warning signs taken seriously enough? As the families and community continue to grieve, the failure to intervene in Axel's case remains a chilling reminder of the importance of addressing such issues before they escalate into unimaginable loss. It was November 13, 1985. In the small Colombian town of Armero, a disaster of unimaginable scale unfolded. On this day, the Nevado del Ruiz volcano erupted, unleashing a massive lahar, a destructive flow of volcanic ash, ice, and debris. The eruption followed months of tremors and warnings, yet the government's lack of preparation led to devastating consequences. Armero, home to about 31,000 residents, lay directly in the path of destruction. The lahar, traveling at an estimated 13 miles per hour, reached the town by 11:30 p.m., burying it in a torrent of mud and debris. Nearly 85% of Armero was destroyed, and around 25,000 people lost their lives. Among the victims was 13-year-old Omeira Sanchez, whose tragic story would come to symbolize the disaster. Omeira was at home with her family when the eruption struck. Her house was demolished by the lahar's force, trapping her beneath the wreckage. While she survived the initial wave, she was stuck in mud and debris, her legs pinned by a brick door and the remnants of her home. Her aunt, who had been trapped alongside her, died while holding onto Omeira's legs in a desperate attempt to protect her. When rescuers arrived, they found Omeira submerged up to her chest in water and mud. Her legs were trapped in such a way that freeing her would require amputation. But the rescue teams lacked the equipment or medical expertise to perform the procedure. Despite their best efforts, the volunteers and locals who tried to help her were powerless without proper resources. Over the next 60 hours, O'Meara remained calm and composed, even in the face of unimaginable suffering. French photojournalist Frank Fournier, who was documenting the aftermath of the disaster, visited her after being led to her location by a local farmer. He captured an image of O'Meara that would later become an iconic representation of the tragedy. Throughout her ordeal, O'Meara demonstrated remarkable courage. She spoke to rescuers and journalists, ate sweets, and drank soda that was offered to her. Her calm demeanor was both inspiring and heartbreaking. However, her condition worsened with time. Her skin began to swell and her eyes turned dark due to the strain and exposure. As hours turned into days, O'Meara's strength began to fade. She became delirious, expressing concerns about school and her math exam. Despite tireless efforts by rescuers, the rising water levels and lack of proper equipment made it impossible to save her. A pump was eventually brought to the scene in a last attempt to drain the water surrounding her, but it was too late. By the third day, O'Meara's health had deteriorated significantly. She showed signs of hypothermia and infection, and her body could no longer endure the physical toll. Surrounded by volunteers and journalists, she spoke her final words to her family, expressing her love. On the morning of November 16th, O'Meara passed away. Her death, along with thousands of others, exposed the severe shortcomings of the Colombian government's response to the volcanic eruption. Despite months of warnings and visible signs of danger, there was little to no preparation. Resources and rescue efforts were inadequate, and many lives that could have been saved were lost. O'Meara's story drew international attention. The photograph taken by Frank Fournier, showing her face partially submerged and visibly weakened, won the 1986 World Press Photo of the Year and became a haunting symbol of the Armero tragedy. It sparked global outrage, highlighting the failure of authorities to act on early warnings and the devastating impact of their inaction. The tragedy left a lasting mark on Colombia and the world. Armero was never rebuilt, and the area remains a solemn memorial to those who perished. O'Meara's story, in particular, continues to resonate, serving as a reminder of the importance of disaster preparedness and the human cost of negligence. Though her life was tragically cut short, O'Meara's courage and composure remain a powerful legacy. Her final moments captured both her resilience and the heartbreaking consequences of preventable disasters. The questions surrounding her death, what could have been done differently, and how many lives could have been saved, still linger. Her story ensures that the Armero tragedy and the lessons it holds will never be forgotten. It was November 24, 2009, when 26-year-old John Edward Jones, a medical student, set out on what would be his last caving trip in Utah's Nutty Putty Cave. John, his brother Josh, and a group of family and friends had planned the excursion as a way to connect before Thanksgiving. For John, an experienced caver, this trip seemed like a safe and familiar activity. However, that evening would turn into a tragedy that left a lasting mark on the caving community. Located southwest of Utah Lake, Nutty Putty Cave was a popular destination for amateur and seasoned cavers. Known for its narrow, twisting passageways and putty-like clay walls, the cave was both a challenge and a thrill for many. Some sections were extremely tight, with passages as narrow as 10 inches wide. Despite its dangers, the cave attracted adventurers eager to test their skills. About an hour into the expedition, John, Josh, and 2 others split off from the main group to explore a section known as the Birth Canal. This part of the cave was infamous for being tight and tricky to navigate. John, however, accidentally entered a different passage. Believing he had found the birth canal, he squeezed into a fissure that measured only 10 inches wide and 18 inches high. Unfortunately, this passage led to a dead end, and once inside, John became stuck, head first and upside down. By 8 p.m., John realized he couldn't move. He was wedged at a downward angle, with his arms pinned beneath his chest. His position made it difficult for his heart to pump blood effectively, putting immense strain on his body. Josh was the first to find him and tried to pull him free, but the narrow passage made it impossible. In a desperate moment, John thought of his wife and kids, silently pleading for their sake. Josh hurried back to the cave entrance to get help. The first rescuer to arrive, Susie Matola, reached John hours later. Despite his dire situation, John managed a weak acknowledgement of her arrival, his expression and tone revealing his growing desperation as he remained trapped. As the night progressed, more than 100 rescuers arrived to attempt a complex and dangerous extraction. Their plan involved using a system of ropes and pulleys to pull John out, but the cave's narrow twists and turns made it nearly impossible to set up the equipment. After hours of effort, they finally managed to install a pulley system. However, as they began pulling, one of the anchors failed, causing John to slip even deeper into the passage. By this point, John had been stuck for over 24 hours. His physical condition worsened due to his inverted position, which restricted his breathing and circulation. In his final moments, John expressed concern for others, asking if a rescuer injured during the operation was okay. This act of selflessness showed his character even as his condition condition deteriorated. After nearly 27 hours trapped in the cave, John's body succumbed to cardiac arrest on November 25, 2009. His family, though devastated, expressed gratitude to the rescue teams for their tireless efforts. Despite their work, John's body could not be recovered due to the cave's treacherous layout. In the days following the tragedy, authorities decided to permanently seal Nutty Putty Cave. Using explosives, they collapsed sections of the cave, leaving John's body inside as a memorial. The closure marked the end of a once popular site but served as a cautionary measure to prevent future tragedies. John Edward Jones's story deeply affected those who knew him and the wider caving community. His death showed the dangers of exploring caves, particularly those with tight, unforgiving passageways like Nutty Putty. While the cave is now closed, the memory of what happened to John lives on as a reminder of how quickly a seemingly safe adventure can turn fatal. It was July 12, 1834, when Scottish botanist David Douglas tragically lost his life on the slopes of Mauna Kea in Hawaii. Known for his groundbreaking botanical discoveries, particularly the introduction of the Douglas fir to Europe, his death remains surrounded by unanswered questions. David Douglas was born in 1799 in Scone, Scotland. From an early age, he preferred exploring nature over academic pursuits. His passion for plants led him to an apprenticeship in gardening at Scone Palace and later to Glasgow University, where he attended botany lectures. His talent caught the attention of renowned botanist William Jackson Hooker. Guided by his passion, Douglas eventually traveled to North America, where he spent much of his life documenting and collecting plant species. In 1823, Douglas embarked on his first North American expedition. Over the years, his explorations of the Pacific Northwest introduced numerous tree species to Europe, including the Sitka spruce, western white pine, and ponderosa pine. However, it was the Douglas fir, named in his honor, that became his most enduring legacy. By 1827, Douglas had already made a profound impact on botany, but his journey was far from over. In 1830, Douglas began his final series of expeditions, venturing to Hawaii to study the island's unique plant life. It was on the rugged volcanic slopes of Mauna Kea, the tallest mountain on the Big Island, that his life came to a sudden and mysterious end. Before his death, Douglas stayed with local Hawaiians and crossed paths with Edward Gurney, a former convict turned cattle hunter. Gurney had dug pit traps in the area to catch wild cattle and warned Douglas of their dangers. Despite the warning, Douglas pressed on with his exploration. Tragically, during his hike, Douglas fell into one of the traps, which already contained a wild bull. The animal fatally injured Douglas, and his body was later discovered by locals. Upon learning of the incident, Gurney reportedly acted quickly. He shot the bull, retrieved Douglas's body, and paid locals to transport it to Hilo. He also ensured Douglas's personal belongings, including his dog, were delivered to missionaries. Despite these efforts, rumors began to circulate. Gurney's criminal past led some to suspect foul play. Some claimed that Douglas had been carrying a considerable amount of money, raising suspicions of robbery. However, investigations at the time concluded that Douglas's injuries matched those caused by a bull, with no evidence pointing to criminal intent. Yet doubts about the circumstances of Douglas's death persisted. Some theorized that his partial blindness, he was blind in one eye, might have contributed to the fall. Others speculated that a dispute with Gurney could have escalated, potentially leading to a deliberate act. Despite these theories, the true events surrounding his death remain unclear. At just 35 years old, David Douglas left behind an extraordinary legacy. Over 240 plant species were introduced to Europe thanks to his efforts, forever shaping botany. However, the questions surrounding his death have continued to intrigue historians and botanists alike. Was it a tragic accident, or was there something more beneath the surface? Douglas's story raises enduring questions. What truly happened to Mauna Kea that day? Could his encounter with Gurney have been more than a simple warning? Was his death an unfortunate twist of fate, or were there hidden motives at play? Though we may never know the full truth, David Douglas's contributions to botany remain monumental. His discoveries have left a mark, and the towering trees that bear his name continue to remind us of his passion for exploration. The mystery of his death only adds another layer to the remarkable life of a man who forever changed the scientific world. It was October 2, 1942, during the height of World War II and one of its most intense confrontations, the Battle of Stalingrad. The Soviet Union was struggling to hold back the relentless German forces, particularly in critical industrial areas like the Red October factory. Amid this brutal conflict, a young Soviet soldier named Mikhail Panakaka performed an act of extraordinary bravery that would be remembered for generations. Mikhail Panakaka was born in 1914 in Mogilev, a village in what is now Ukraine. Growing up in a poor farming family, he spent his early years working on a collective farm. In 1939, he joined the Soviet Navy and served as a sailor in the Pacific Fleet. By 1942, as the war escalated, Panikaka requested to be sent to the front lines. He was assigned to the 883rd Rifle Regiment of the 193rd Rifle Division, stationed to defend Stalingrad's industrial hub. On October 2nd, Panikaka's unit faced a massive assault by the German 24th Panzer Division, supported by infantry from the 71st Division. German tanks advanced relentlessly, and the Soviet soldiers used every resource, grenades, anti-tank rifles, and artillery, to hold their position. However, their ammunition was running low, and the situation grew increasingly desperate. Panikaka had 2 Molotov cocktails, a last resort weapon against the tanks. As he prepared to use one, a German bullet struck the bottle in his hand. It shattered, igniting the flammable liquid and engulfing Panikaka in flames. Despite the agony, he grabbed the second bottle and charged toward the nearest tank. Fully aware he would not survive, he threw the weapon onto the tank, which burst into flames. His act caused panic among the German troops, forcing them to retreat and allowing his unit to regroup and counterattack. Panikaka succumbed to his injuries soon after. His body was found near the Krasny Oktyabr factory, where he had made his courageous stand. His selfless act of heroism had a profound impact, turning the tide of the skirmish in that critical moment. Although Panikaka's bravery was recognized immediately by his comrades, the chaos of war delayed his official recognition. In November 1942, a recommendation was made to honor him with the title Hero of the Soviet Union, but the award was not granted until 1990, nearly 48 years after his death. His story became a powerful symbol of sacrifice and courage in the Soviet Union. Monuments were made in his honor, including one at the site where he fell, near the Krasny Oktyabr factory in Volgograd. The monument depicts a man engulfed in flames, charging forward, a tribute to Panikaka's ultimate sacrifice for his country. Today, Panikaka is remembered as one of the countless heroes of the Battle of Stalingrad, a symbol of the determination and resilience of Soviet soldiers during one of history's deadliest battles. His name is commemorated on monuments in Volgograd, his homeland of Dnipropetrovsk, and other locations. His legacy endures as a reminder of the immense sacrifices made during the war. Panikaka's actions also raise questions about the impact of individual courage during war. What if he had not acted as he did? Would the Soviet counterattack have succeeded without his decisive bravery? How many more lives might have been lost had the German forces not been halted at that critical moment? While we will never know the answers to these questions, one thing is certain: Mikhail Panikaka's sacrifice played a crucial role in the defense of Stalingrad. His fearless act under unimaginable circumstances continues to inspire, demonstrating the lengths to which individuals will go to protect their comrades and their homeland.